Hello, and welcome back to Monifactory, where we just finished. Ooh, let me turn this back up. We just finished the Steam Age. Yesterday, we crafted our first LV tier circuit so that we can progress into the new age and start making some electric machines. But we can't yet. We need some more of these first. So we need to get to work here. I'm gonna craft 6 more of these. 5 more? I'm gonna make some more of these so that we can actually get the first machine that we need, and then I will return to you. Jeez, okay, just crafted up 6 whole circuits for us to work with, and we're going to use them right away to craft our first 2 machines. First, we need a way to turn our steam into power. These LV machines are going to start running on electricity, which in Gregtech it is EU per tick. So we're going to make this steam turbine generator, which is the easiest way to generate, I think maybe the only way to generate power in LV. So we have all of our circuits, but we need a few other components. The LV machine hull is just going to be like the brass one, but now we're going to be using steel and wrought iron. So here's a couple of those machine casings. And then another common crafting component is going to be these electric motors. These get to be slightly more complicated, and then there will be other complicated crafting components that use these motors in the future, like these pistons, for example. And then pistons are also used to make like robot arms. So all of these crafting ingredients are complicated and you need a lot of them. Alright, so we should be ready to craft our first machine. We're going to grab the turbine generator. And then the actual first machine that's going to allow us to craft things is the wire mill. And let me just say that NEI recipe tree was really useful for all of the components that we needed to craft there. So I'm going to hook this up to our steam output. Then once we have our steam coming down, we can hook up our turbine generator. Hopefully this doesn't blow up. And then somehow, if we can get our steam into here, it's going to start producing some electricity. It is going to stop because it only has a small internal buffer. But now we can start hooking up our machines next to this. Now for transferring power, we're going to use those conductive iron wires that we made yesterday. In this pack, the best wires for transferring energy are going to be superconductors, and conductive iron is one of those. It gets a little complicated trying to explain how all of these wires work. Gregtech wants to factor in the energy loss between all of the wires over a long distance, but in this case, since we're using a superconductor, that doesn't count. All of the wires that we'll craft in the future too will also be superconductors. But at this tier, LV, we only have access to these conductive iron ones. And maybe at a later time I'll explain why we want different wires. But for now, we'll just hook this up like this and get our wire mill connected to some power. And we can also use a wire mill to work with our wire here and reconnect everything as we need. But here we go, we have our first machine now, the wire mill. This machine is going to allow us to take some ingots and turn them into wires. Another thing is that all of the wires have different densities. We start off with the 1x wires, which are just made with 1 ingot. But then if you combine 4 of them, you'll get 4x wires. And I'm really bad at explaining all this, but this goes up to 16, I believe. And this applies to the wire mill because we actually need to tell it which size wire to make. And the way we do that is with a circuit. Now down here in the left, there's a setting for the circuit, and you'll see in the recipe, it tells you which number the circuit needs to be on. So if we wanted 16 times wires, then we would hit 16, but we just want 1. So we're going to select this, and it's going to start crafting some wires. Crafting wires in here is going to give us 2 wires for every ingot, which is way better than having to craft plates, and then use the wire cutters to turn one plate into wire. So this is going to be way more efficient. One more thing about your energy is each machine will actually tell you how much energy it's using for its crafting. So up in the top there, you can see this is using 7 EU per tick right now. And I think, yes, up there it says this generates 32 EU per tick. So we'll be good for a while. And this will be able to hold a couple more machines. Now that we've hit LV, our machines can also auto output to a storage. So I've just got an iron barrel here that we're going to select here, and I guess we gotta go around to the bottom and have this output. There we go. And turn on auto output. That should work. And all of our copper wire is gonna go into the barrel. And we can just keep using hoppers for the input now, I guess. This will be useful for when we want to craft items in bulk, which we will eventually want to do anyway. So if we need to put a bunch of copper in here to turn into a bunch of wires, that will be how we do it. Hopefully I explained all that well. I have no idea. Now that we have our wire mill, we're going to take some time and batch craft some more of these circuits, because there are a couple of machines that we need to make. And all of these, of course, take circuits and pistons and motors and all of that. So it's going to be way easier if we just go ahead and craft a bunch of circuits now, so that we aren't micro-crafting them in the future whenever we need one. So I've gone ahead and marked out a couple of machines that are going to be like the most important ones to get us started in the LV age. But I do realize that I have a couple of leftover circuits, so I'm going to craft one of these first to make circuit easier and machine crafting easier before I go ahead and batch craft all of these. And that is going to be the bender. Now, I do need to craft all these motors and pistons first, so I will be right back. Another thing we can do, I forgot about, is that we can actually get rid of our steam solid boiler. Now that we have access to glass, I don't know if I mentioned this also, but we can craft upgraded tools now that we have steel. I'm probably not going to do this for all of them, but it is slightly more, I think it's better than, yes, it's better than wrought iron. And we can also make a better mining hammer if we wanted to. Right, but we are going to craft the steam solar boiler, which does require some silver plates, which we haven't made yet, but this is really easy to grit in a galena ore vein. So we can actually break this and replace it with our solar boiler. Hopefully it doesn't like auto connect. I'm gonna remove the pipes first before I try to mess with that, because I don't trust it. So let's hook this guy up. I think we can have the water pipe into the side. I think that's fine. Yeah, there we go. This does need to have access to the sun. And fortunately, in this void world, it is always day. So this will always be on. And it doesn't require any solid fuel. So we can go ahead and, I believe, hook this up to our steam. I'm having a slight conundrum. I don't know what's going on with my wrench. I'm trying to fix up these pipes, but it's just cycling through the configuration mode. This works, but this doesn't. So if anybody knows a fix for that. Anyway, this guy should be producing some steam sometime soon. I guess it has to heat up a bit first, which hopefully it should, I hope. So unfortunately, there's a really weird bug with Gregtech itself that's preventing the solar boiler from working even in the void dimension. So I guess if we want this to work, we have to move everything. Okay. Phew, that only took for freaking ever. At our new base, I gotta get rid of those, jeez. Our solar boiler does look like it is finally heating up, and will start producing some energy soon. I have to replace it though, before it gets any hotter. We want this to be connected to it, so it will give it water. Otherwise, kaboom. We don't want that. No kaboom. And with everything back up and running, and our solar boiler actually working here, let's keep moving on and get the bending machine. And there we go. There is the LV bender. In this machine, we can make plates easier at a 1-to-1 ratio. We just need to set our circuit slot to 1, and this can start making some plates for us. Much cheaper than the forge hammer taking 3 and making 2 plates. Maybe I need some more power. So I'm gonna craft up a couple of these high pressure steam boilers, which are basically the same as the bronze ones we've been using. These ones are just made out of steel, but they will produce double the steam. Also, I can't figure out how to configure the output on these solar boilers, because I'm trying to add more of these. They keep filling up with steam instead of water, because it seems like this thing is outputting into these other steam boilers. But I can't quite figure out how to prevent that from happening. So instead, I'm just going to put them up here and just have them completely separate. Cool, so hopefully that gives us a little bit more steam. Also, I'm going to turn it down now because it's very loud. Okay, now I feel comfortable getting to work on all these circuits. Okay, I have ultimately decided I'm going to make 30 circuits. That's going to be fun. Yeah, that's not too bad, actually. Could be a lot worse. Although I could pull off half of the steel plates. Wait, what? Is this a scam? No. I have not been making rubber sheets in the... There's no way. I've been making this in the alloy smelter. I can literally... What? Is that a new thing? The pack did get updated. Is that new? Holy cow. That's incredible, actually. That's gonna save so much. What? They did. They removed the need to go to the nether. That's awesome, actually. So they actually also changed the steel recipe to be a lot easier. You no longer actually need the primitive blast furnace in order to make it. All you need to do in order to make steel now is, at least in the beginning age, is crush down some iron to turn it into dust, and crush down some coal as well. And then you just craft these two together, and you have yourself some steel dust, hopefully. It does have to be wrought iron. Okay. That would make sense, wouldn't it? And they also changed the wrought iron recipe to no longer force you to craft nuggets first. Very much appreciated, if you ask me. Yeah, that makes things so much easier. You can just craft steel dust like that with wrought iron and pop it in a smelter or furnace, and it will make steel. Goodbye. Now maybe I don't feel so bad about using steel to make tools. I am just gonna take some time and mine up a whole bunch of like iron, and we need a lot of copper and redstone too. I'm gonna take some time and mine up a whole bunch of this stuff so I can craft all these circuits we need, and eventually all the stuff for the machines too. So I just spent quite a long time mining a whole bunch of stuff, so hopefully this will get us through all of those circuits we need in the machines. One thing I've noticed already is that this small bronze pipe is definitely not enough for the output that we need for this turbine. We can see we're losing a whole bunch of steam in here because it's not able to keep up. If we look at the recipe, we can see this is the recipe it's running right now, where it's using 640 millibuckets of steam every half of a second to generate 30 EU per tick, which means it's using, 1280 millibuckets of steam per second, and these small bronze fluid pipes only hold 800. So I'm gonna go and swap these out for some normal bronze fluid pipes, and hope that that runs a little better. There we go. This should be able to hold some more steam so that this always stays full. In the wire mill, we can also now make these fine copper wires instead of having to craft copper foil through plates. So we just need to change the circuit to 3, and if we throw some copper ingots in here, it will make a whole bunch of fine copper wire for us. We just need to make sure we switch this back to 1 when we want normal wires. Oh, and this rubber sheet recipe is so much easier now. That's going to take no time at all. I am going to craft one more machine before I batch craft all of these circuits, and that is going to be the LV lathe. This is going to reduce the cost of making rods. In here, we can throw in 1 ingot and get 2 rods instead of having to craft 1 rod for each ingot, which is going to save us quite a lot of steel. That should reduce the cost of all these circuits by quite a lot. Okay, I think I finally have enough stuff to do this. Yeah. It may seem like that took a long time, but this is going to save a whole bunch of time in the future. So now with all those circuits, we can begin crafting some machines. Of course, we need all of the pistons and machine holes and stuff like that. So we're going to get working on that. I'm going to mark down all the machines I need and track how many of all the other parts I need. I will be right back. I'm going to craft a alloy smelter at the LV one, and we can actually get rid of our steam one now. In here, we can do all the things that our steam alloy smelter could do, but now we can also craft steel a lot easier. If you see, we can just take some iron and coal dust and process it in the alloy smelter and make steel that way. You can use wrought iron if you want. It takes 2.5 seconds less, but then if you really think about it, it would take longer because we would have to put the iron back through the furnace in order to get wrought iron first, and this way we can just take the iron right away. And even if it takes 2.5 seconds longer, that's not that big of a deal. So now we can just throw a whole bunch of iron and coal dust in here and end up with a whole bunch of steel. And actually I'm thinking now maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to, well, instead of trying to craft all of these machines right away, what if I instead speedrun the blast furnace? The blast furnace is a huge multi-block that's going to allow us to craft aluminum, and this is the only way to smelt up aluminum. And then once we have aluminum, we'll be able to enter the NV tier, just the next tier above LV, which then unlocks a whole bunch of new stuff, and we can make machines that will make crafting the LV machines easier. We'll also then have access to hostile neural networks. And with this, we can basically simulate killing mobs, which generates pristine matter, which we can then turn into loot. And for example here, the spider data model will get us infinite copper. Now, of course, this doesn't apply for all of the materials, but some of the basic ones like copper and iron, I believe, and a couple others, we will have access to produce infinitely. We just need to set up quite a lot of things in order to get that going. So that'll be another episode, but we can at least get the blast furnace to unlock the MV tier. So let's do that. Okay, there's a whole bunch of machine holes. The next machine I'm gonna get is a polarizer. With this machine, we'll be able to craft these magnetic iron rods easier. Normally, this recipe takes 4 redstone dust just to craft 1, but in the polarizer, it takes 0 redstone dust. So that's a whole lot of redstone we could save. I'm gonna do it. So we can just pop these in here and magnetic iron rods. After that, we're gonna craft the assembler. I'm missing a little bit of thin wire. Everything is so much easier to make now, especially in bulk. I can just throw a whole bunch of tin in there and let it run for a while, and we just get tin wire. Let those rubber sheets compress. And 1 assembler. Yippee! And this is actually a pretty big milestone because we're able to do quite a lot of things in here. But the main thing we're going to be looking to craft is these copper and nickel, which are used to build the electric blast furnace. And this is pretty much the only piece that we're missing. Although we may need an extractor as well. So copper and nickel is made in the alloy smelter with copper and nickel, which may actually mean we need to go find a nickel vein. And with any luck, we should be right above a nickel vein. Hopefully this is one, I think. Oh yeah, for sure. Here we go. Nickel veins also contain garnierite. I don't even know how you're supposed to say that, but that also smelts into nickel. So we can get quite a lot here real easily and get a couple of stacks of that smelting up. While we're waiting on all that nickel to smelt up, we can craft the extractor. Now we've run into a bit of an energy problem. Our turbine generator is only generating 32 EU per tick, and trying to run a couple of these machines at the same time is running into a problem. We can see we're using 24 with the bender and 16 with the alloy smelter, which is, well, more than 32. So for now, we'll have to only run one of these at a time until we can get another turbine generator. and probably some more steam generation. That sounds like next episode's problem, though. Another thing we can craft easier with the lathe is screws, actually. We just toss in some of these tin bolts and make screws at a 1-to-1 ratio. Normally this takes 2 bolts for 1 screw. Everything in this pack is basically going to be crafting machines in order to craft previous things cheaper. But I think that's what makes it fun. Okay, here is the extractor. We're going to put this next to the assembling machine. Maybe I should build out some more. Now, the extractor is going to be used in order to make the liquid tin alloy that we need for the coils. Basically, all we need to do is get some tin alloy ingots and pop it in here, and it will extract it into a liquid, and then we can use it in the assembler. Tin alloy is made by alloying iron and tin together. So let's get some of that alloying, and then if we pop some of this into our extractor, we can have this auto output to the side that the assembly machine is on. And in theory, if we set this to auto output, this whole new screen is kind of confusing to me. Yes, there we go. That should automatically go into the assembler to be ready to be used. Maybe not. Oh, I see what I was doing. The blue is the fluid output, and then the orange is the item output. I'm so silly. All we're missing now is all of the copper nickel, which we're just going to make in the alloy smelter. While we're waiting on that, we can craft the rest of the things we need to build the blast furnace. You can see all of this stuff here. All these little output hatches, energy hatches, all of these we need. So that is 8 LV machine casings, which I'm actually missing one somehow. Miscalculated. So for the blast furnace, we need both a LV output and input hatch. These are for fluids. And then we need an LV input bus and output bus. These are for the items. We need a muffler hatch. And we also need a maintenance hatch. And the last thing we need is 2 LV energy hatches. We have our copper nickel wires all crafted up. We can throw them in the assembler. And this will take a little bit, but it's going to start crafting these copper nickel coils. I'm actually going to pause this until all of our copper nickel wires are crafted, because this takes 30 EU per tick, which is crazy. There's all 16 of our copper nickel coils as well. The last thing we're missing is the blast furnace itself, along with some of these heat-proof machine casings. These are all made with Invar, which is made by alloying iron and nickel together. So let's get some of that going. 10 heat-proof Invar machine casings later, and 1 electric blast furnace coming up any day now. And we will succeed. Oh, okay. Alright, well, we should be ready to build this guy up. We're going to follow the pattern that it shows in the multi-block page. When it comes to all of the inputs and outputs, you can actually place them wherever you would like on the multi-block, not wherever. For example, on this bottom layer, we're going to have all these heat-proof machine casings, and then in the multi-block pattern, it will show you that you can put these outputs anywhere on here, or we can even put them up top if we would like. That being said, the only thing that has to be here is the electric blast furnace controller in the front middle spot. Then I'm going to put the input bus on the right, the output bus on the left, and maybe I'll put the maintenance hatch on the side. Maybe not. Let's get all these copper nickel coils going. And on the top, I'm going to have the maintenance hatch go in the back facing the back side. The muffler hatch has to go in the middle top spot, and it has to face upwards, and you cannot block this block from seeing the sky, because it needs to exhaust all of its... I don't even know. It just has to. And then we'll put the input and output hatch up here as well. Fill in the rest with Invar, and we should be good. It should fix itself up. Beautiful. At first, it's going to say that it needs maintenance up there. Right now, I already did it on accident, but right now it says it's fine. But what you need to do is come around to the back here, and you'll need to, let me get rid of this. You'll need to click this spot with a bunch of tools in your hand. It doesn't, usually it says exactly what maintenance it needs. But if you click there, it should solve that problem. In the future, we can craft this tape. Yes, reinforced duct tape, which we will have access to relatively soon, and then we can just put a bunch of that in here instead, and it will automatically repair the maintenance spot. Otherwise, we will have to come back here every now and then and fix whatever maintenance problem it has. And with that, if you thought we were ready to craft aluminum, we aren't. We need one more thing. We actually need to power this big machine. If we take a look at the recipe for aluminum, we'll see that this is a MV tier recipe. It's going to take 120 EU per tick in order to craft. And, well, these turbine generators, they only generate 32. So we have a slight problem. So technically we would need 4 steam turbines in order to get this thing fully operational. Or what if we didn't do that and we just run off of 1 steam turbine generator until we can get the MV tier 1? I think that sounds better. I think that would be the smart thing to do, because this thing does produce 128 EU per tick, so we could run that blast furnace off of just the 1 turbine. Okay, here is 1 steam turbine generator. And I'm going to borrow this turbine generator in a minute, but we can just hook this straight up to the energy hatch and have it output to that. And then we can get our steam flowing into there with some pipes. Oh, and in case I forgot to mention, I've been building this base to be, not base, but what we have going on right now. I'll probably do a better decoration in the future once I can get some blocks automatically and everything. But for now, this whole thing is chunk aligned, which is why these indents are here, to make sure that I don't place any of these multi-blocks over the chunk boundary. Anyway, we have our power now. Let's make some aluminum. Oh, and in case you thought aluminum was easy to get, it's not. It's not. You can't just mine it. We can't just go mining and looking for it. We need an electrolyzer. Fortunately, this doesn't require any like pistons or anything, just a couple pieces of gold wire. Ta-da! This is the machine that's going to allow us to make aluminum dust. Pop this on here, I guess. The easiest way that we're going to be able to do this in the LV tier is to electrolyze clay dust. This will get us 2 aluminum for every 13, along with some other things. Most of this we won't need at the moment though. And it's also going to produce some water, which we'll have to void. So let's toss some clay dust in here. And this should get us some aluminum. We can have all that water output to a fluid trash can. So that way it just goes in the trash can and we don't have to worry about it backing up in here. And we have ourselves some aluminum. So once this finishes, I'm actually going to stop this from working. And we're going to move it over to our blast furnace. Now, I know for a fact that these steam pipes aren't going to be able to keep up due to some throughput issues. If we put our aluminum dust in here, and what are you waiting for? Ah, you need a circuit. There we go. And already it's not working. We may have a problem. Oh, maybe I do need more turbines. Oh, man. I just got all of this cleaned up, I think. Switched over to these large bronze fluid pipes because they can transfer 480 millibuckets per tick, which, doing the math and everything, should be enough to run 4 of these guys off of steam. I hope if we run into any issues, I'll update you in the future. Now, how do we connect this up to our blast furnace? Well, I think, keep in mind I have no idea what I'm doing. I somewhat know what I'm doing. But I think if we use these... Okay, wait. How do I explain this? So each of these turbine generators is going to output 1 amp of energy. Also, You can leave a comment saying if I'm wrong on this, because I would love to know so I can learn. Because I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm going to try to explain what I think it is, though. So each one of these outputs 1 amp and 32 EU per tick. So the wires that we were using before can hold 1 amp and 32 EU per tick. But if we tried to connect up 4 different turbine generators, this would get overloaded and burn up all of our wire. So what we need is a wire that can hold 4 amps. So that's where we have these 4 times conductive iron wires. So that should be able to hold all of these. And then we can run this up through all of our other machines too. But what we really want is to connect it up to the blast furnace. Now the blast furnace is going to need MV energy, or 128 EU per tick, which if you divide that into 4 turbine generators, each producing 32 EU per tick, then we have 128. So that's where we have 4 amps of LV energy should add up to 128. Now whether or not I'm right on this is an entirely different story. Each of these energy hatches can also hold 2 amps of energy. It doesn't tell you that anywhere though. I think it used to, but it doesn't mention that anywhere in like the tooltips for the block. So we have 2 going in here and 2 going in here. That should be 64 each, or 128, and I think this will work. Right? Please don't blow up. I think it's gonna work. It's running so far. All of these have energy. All of these are working. It's probably going to eat our steam like crazy. But all of these have steam. Hopefully these are able to keep up as well. And I think we did it. Yeah, we got our first piece of aluminum. Jeez, that is a milestone. And by milestone, I mean I have like 8 hours of footage to edit now. Okay. Mile is a understatement. Except we are definitely gonna need more steam production. Jeez. Alright, that sounds like next episode's problem. I actually need to turn this off. We're out of steam. Anywho, and with the production of aluminum, I think that's gonna do it for today's episode. I forgot to claim the LV age reward. But we're in the LV age. And technically, we're in the MV age as well. There we go. Look at that. So with that, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.